Hi, and welcome back to PlanFirst Live. I'm Sean Larkin, and I'm representing PlanFirst Pinnacle Design today. We specialize in architecture, interiors, and landscaping design. We're based in Auckland, but we design all across New Zealand and also globally. So today we're going to be following on from last week's talk with our little mini-series regarding can you use the same floor plan on different sites. So last week was a bit of an overview of just the different sites, the challenges and opportunities for each, very briefly. And what we will be doing now for the next few weeks is just having a look at each specific site's typology and just zoning more into the specifics of the particular sites, what the opportunities are, what the difficulties are, and how to overcome it, what to watch out for when you are designing on a specific site, and how you would adapt a floor plan if you do have an existing floor plan. So what I will do is just add the presentation to the stage. There we go, that's better. All right, so today we're going to be having a look specifically at the urban site. And the first question that we can ask is, what is an urban site? So an urban site would be a site which is located in a town or built up neighbourhood. It's not suburban, so it would be more traditionally, it would be a site that is closer to the CBD or to the city, more high density living. And you would probably, if you look at history, it would be houses that were built a long time ago, you know, when the city was still small. And over time, as the city expanded, those houses that were built originally over time would be knocked down, and space would be made for higher density living closer to the city. So generally they are quite small lots, and they are narrow as well. You would have on-street parking. So in some instances, depending on your regulations, etc., you could have a garage. Very seldom will you be able to fit a double garage in, but you know, usually you're very close to your neighbours because the sites are so small. Generally, you can build from one side to the other side because they're so narrow. So one would have to look at your regulations and your planning rules in the area where you are designing. But generally, smaller land areas, so higher height restrictions, which means you can, in most cases, build 3 stories. They've all got street frontage, so they open onto the street, which is one of the considerations. You've got to look very carefully at how you transition from the street into the actual house and how you treat that facade, because it really does become part of the streetscape. Generally, there would be services nearby because it is so close to the city. And again, just have a look at your planning controls. Because you are so close to your neighbours, the planning controls would be quite restrictive and quite tight. And generally not much open space in this type of living. You wouldn't have masses of backyard, for instance. You'd rely more on courtyards and the like. So just some examples. This is an example where the lots are generally all narrow. Almost, if I can say, it's almost like a townhouse typology in a way, although each one is an individual full title. It's not a sectional title or a cross-lease property. They would all be full title, individually owned sites. But, you know, the tall, narrow house design is what you will find here. So quite often it would be infill sites between properties, or rear sections, like what we call panhandles or rear sections. And the older homes are often replaced by a higher density living. So the biggest opportunity that you've got is the efficient land use, and also your strong street presence, because you are virtually on the street. There's no boundary generally between these units and the pavement or the street. So you need to make sure that that interaction links well. Also, of course, you're going to make, these are expensive lots, so you're going to make the maximum use of your land. So have to check your coverage and your permissible growth that you are allowed on each site. Because they are so sought after, being close to the city and being freehold, they do tend to be more expensive, because everybody wants to live closer to the city, so it cuts down their commute to work. And you would want to create a really strong first impression or street presence. And you want to make it feel generous, although in some instances it is difficult when it is so narrow. But we'll have a look at some examples as we go further into the talk. There are very clever ways of doing this. I would say generally, I mean, this is now very luxurious as far as urban design goes. But generally, I mean, even in this instance, there is no garage here either. You would have your walls low if you have got a wall at all. So keep the walls low so that you don't have, you don't want to block the house off from the street, because part of the appeal is that it is a really strong link with the streetscape. So garage position, if you do have one, is something to consider. Obviously, depending whether you're north entry or south entry, that affects your light. Being in the southern hemisphere, you would like to have your living rooms on the northern side to get northern sun. But if it's a northern entry property, then obviously if you do have a garage, the garage actually is taking up prime sun space. So these things are things to consider. And also just have a look and see how the house fits into the neighbouring houses as well. It's important to have a look at all the factors before you actually finalise a design. Now, one of the biggest challenges that you have with these properties is privacy and natural light. Because you are so close to your neighbours, and because your neighbours are also building quite tall units, or you might even have an apartment block next to you, the chances are very good that you will have overlooking into your property. So treat that very carefully and sensitively. You definitely want to bring sunlight into the house. Lots of ways to do that, which we'll get to. But you also want to protect your outdoor living space. So in this instance, that apartment block looks straight into this house. They could have done things a bit differently just to improve the privacy. I don't think I would like to have this as my living space and have absolutely no privacy from the neighbours. So you want to keep the home open, but also private at the same time. And the reason privacy is difficult is because your neighbours are so close to you. If you do have a setback, for instance, these neighbours here, both the neighbours have got setbacks, so they do have windows on those facades, which look straight into the courtyard or the outdoor living space of this unit, which does make it uncomfortable. Shared fences is quite fine, it's quite acceptable. You would have a higher fence on the side than you would on your streetscape, for instance. And just sensitively treat those outdoor areas. So how do we improve privacy in these types of, on these sites? Firstly, you can do it with high-level windows, the clear story windows, which we've spoken about quite a lot in the past. So they allow light to come in. It's the top image in the slide. you retain your privacy because people can't look in, or they can look in, but they're going to look at the ceiling. So the occupants of that space are private, but you're still getting the natural light and the natural ventilation in. You can do it with vertical screens. Courtyards, fantastic. We'll have a look at some very clever courtyards as we get more into the talk. And then just be sensitive with, in some instances, you probably would want some solid screening between you and the neighbour. You can do that with vegetation. I prefer doing it with vegetation because it does just soften the space, but you could do it with screens as well if you don't necessarily need a solid wall between you and your neighbour. Angled windows can also work. If you've got your narrow lot and you do have windows looking in, nothing prevents you from actually just building a window out at an angle, just so that you're not really facing the neighbour that is looking into you. That's quite acceptable. Just keep the sunlight, direction of the sun in mind when you do that. You could actually use that as a solution if your site is not orientated north or south, which often happens. I mean, it's very, very seldom that you get a site that is orientated exactly in the direction you want it to be. So that is a solution that one can look at. Outdoor privacy screens, as you see at the bottom right-hand side, lots of different ways that one can have a look at privacy and solve those challenges. Roof lights is another one, but again, depending on who's next door to you and who can look into that roof light. But it is a good way of getting light in. Clever use of courtyard here. So what you would do with courtyards on these sites is you could either have a courtyard at the end, so rear courtyard, or you can have a side courtyard, such as this. It just depends on the site and if you've got the space. This is quite wide for an urban lot. So you can use a combination, of course, of the high clear story windows, some roof lights, a couple of courtyards, but just make sure that you get enough light into the house so that you don't have dark and dingy. And of course, just bringing the landscaping in, for me, is paramount. It's actually a non-negotiable for me. Then this is one of the more clever ways of solving the problem. This is an extremely narrow lot. Most probably it's no wider than a double garage, so call it 6 meters. They didn't have the opportunity to have a rear courtyard. And even if they did, it would still be a very long, narrow space to have absolutely no light coming in. Both walls on the sides are right up against the boundary just to get the minimum width in. So there's no opportunity for windows there. So putting a courtyard in the middle of the layout works fantastically. It's got glass all the way around, so you can visually see, and you can, I mean, it's open all the way. So you can visually see the kitchen and the dining room on the other side. And there's just enough space on the left to have your stairs going up and a passage going through to the back of the house. But you've got the greenery. It almost feels like, I don't want to say a normal house is traditional as we know it, but just having that little bit of garden space makes all the difference to this unit. Keep in mind when you do this, though, that your stormwater needs to be very, very well designed and also well maintained. There is nowhere else for the water to go. If you've got a blocked stormwater pipe, you're going to have flooding. So make sure that the homeowner is aware that they need to just clear those stormwater pipes regularly. So just getting back to having a standard floor plan and wanting to place it on an urban site. I can almost guarantee that in 99.9% of cases, you will not be able to just copy and paste it. You will definitely need to tweak it, be it rotate it to get the right orientation, mirror it. If you've got, I mean, in this instance, it doesn't work because you use solid in the left and the right. Although, having said that, you will have your sun coming in to the courtyard space from a particular side. So you might mirror it for that reason. And then if you're designing something like this, design your layout around the courtyard. Make the courtyard the focal point and the starting point of the design, and then go from there. So, I mean, I love this image because it really showcases a lot of narrow lots, but each design is unique to itself and unique to the homeowner, but they all solve the problems that they need to solve, and they all address the issues very well. So some of these homeowners do have the garage, and some of them don't. It just depends on how much space they actually need. You'll see that the narrower lot, the dark one, that doesn't have a garage. I mean, that would have just been impossible to put that there. But very small little section of land, but still usable. So clever design goes a long way. And often it is very tight between neighbours. So it's very seldom that you would find windows on the sides of these units. Sometimes if you've got a little bit of a setback, depending on your regulations again, I think the starting point for any project actually is to have a look at the constraints, the site constraints, and what the local regulations are. And of course, if you're lucky enough to have a rooftop that you can use, then this can 100% be your outdoor entertaining space. It is private. If you do need a bit of extra privacy, you can put a pergola up. Well, you would probably do that anyway, just for a bit of shade and shelter. And then just use your screening to screen from whichever neighbours you need to screen from. And that'll just give you a really nice, it's a great use of the roof space, which otherwise would have gone wasted. And it gives you a whole extra outdoor living area. So really great use of outdoor space. And design everything intentionally. Don't do the roof garden or the roof space as an add-on. Design it intentionally with the rest of the house. This is an image of a rear courtyard, and they've put the screens up. Those slats most probably would be electronically regulated so that you can close them. You can open them or close them as you need them and as you need to screen and as the sun moves. So nice outdoor space. This is quite a big back courtyard for an urban space. So if you're lucky enough, you don't need something quite as big as this. They could have actually put this space on the roof, as we saw with the previous image, if they didn't have enough space to work with. What do we have next? Garage and access we spoke about briefly. So have a look at the driveway location. I mentioned it in last week's talk as well. If you are one of the first buyers to buy one of the lots, always try and choose a south entry in the southern hemisphere, because you want the northern sun, and a north entry in the northern hemisphere. Only space for a single garage in most of these lots. And just make sure that your garage door does not overrule your entrance. You still want your entrance door to be the focal point. Yeah, so just make sure there's good front door visibility. And normally you would do that by actually positioning the front door a little bit you're sort of in front of the garage door, which in this instance is the other way around, but it doesn't matter. Vehicle turning is that doesn't really apply here because you would just reverse your car into the road. They're lucky enough to have additional guest parking. It's very seldom that you will find this unless it's a very exclusive upmarket area in an urban environment. Most of the cars will just be parking in the street. And then also be very mindful of construction access. They are very tight sites. So construction access is difficult. Not only on the site because the site's small, but also in the street. You know, if this is a street with traffic, you can't have trucks and things blocking the access or the public road. So they are tricky to build on, which means it's more expensive, and it takes more time because you have to do small things at a time. You can't have masses of people working here at the same time. There are some restrictions you must just be aware of. So planning rules, the first thing that you always look at before you start designing, have a look at your height limits, have a look at your recession plans. If you've got step backs, what is your site coverage? Often there is a minimum outdoor percentage required. So have a look at that. Have a look at parking rules. Often with these urban sites, it is street parking. So the councils don't require that you have to provide on-site parking. Overlooking controls is also important. If you do try and put windows often in your on the side boundaries, if you've got a setback, heavier controls on those. Normally you would only be able to do high level windows for the exact reason that you don't want to look into your neighbour's property. And then your stormwater controls also very tight. If you're building from the side to the side, the water that comes in at the back needs to go somewhere. So stormwater, extremely, extremely important. So I can't stress that enough. So make that part of your checklist. Then your construction cost for this is also high because of the reasons I mentioned a little bit earlier. Access is very limited, very narrow access on the site and also access in the street. Most probably you would need to, in most instances, demolish something in order to build. So you've got, you need access to get that demolished material out. You're also working close to your neighbours, so very dusty for them, very noisy for them. It is always a sensitive issue. Most neighbours will be tolerant to a point. If they know that the build is going to take 3 months, 4 months, and they can see that there is progress and work being done all the time, they're fairly tolerant, but tolerance does run out at a point, or patience does run out if there's permanent dust and noise going on for, the build gets delayed and it starts becoming 8-9 months. And then you've actually cost your relationship with your neighbours pretty much till the end of time. So a lot of things to consider with urban sites. And just have a look at the extra planning requirements that generally are in place for these types of builds. So can a 250 square meter plan work here? Yes, it can, but virtually never without some form of intervention, be it in the width, be it in the length, be it in the layout. Of course, each client has got its own requirements as well. So if you have, this is only a 3.6 meter site, which is very narrow. If you've got a floor plan that you found somewhere in the width is 5 meters, well, immediately you've got to tweak. And then check, does it get enough sun? Is there enough outdoor living area? Do your windows overlook your neighbours? Does your garage work if you've got a garage? And have you got enough open space? And importantly, does it meet the planning rules? Because it doesn't help to design something that council will not allow. So make sure that that is all covered. So yeah, normally you'll need to change either the width, the number of levels. The narrower you go, the more levels you will want within reason. Nobody wants to live in a 4-story house without a lift. Maybe you can put in a lift. Window placement, garage positions. Your entry sequence is important as well. You wouldn't want to walk in, but that's more design related generally. It wouldn't be specific to urban sites. But you wouldn't want to walk in and walk past a bedroom to get to the lounge. You would generally want the lounge first. And also you'd want that lounge to face the street so that you keep that street connection with your house. And if you need privacy, put in screens, put in vegetation, something that obviously at night you can use curtains or blinds. But during the day, you want to have that connection with the street. You don't want to close the house off and let it be an unfriendly space. And then just have a look at the overall building form. On urban sites, you are restricted. Start with your outside form, and then you design infill from there. So just quickly, your strategies would then be courtyards, imperative. You could do 2 stories, you could do 3 stories, dependent. This neighbourhood would have most probably a height restriction of 2 stories, but you have got quite a bit of width here. So you can fit everything in, just design it, according to those regulations. Control your openings, make sure you've only got your openings front and back. If on the sides, make them high-level windows like you see in this image. And be smart with your landscaping. Just a good illustration also of the walls that they have got here in these instances. Low walls. Don't do high walls on the street facade. It'll just give a really stark streetscape. Most probably there would be regulations stating your front fence may only be, call it 1 meter or whatever it is. Flexible rooms you can also have a look at, so that's also again not specific to urban design or urban site design. That is just a general comment. And of course, if you're living in a small narrow unit, try and every single square meter counts. So try and use unused spaces as storage as best you can. And just in closing, what makes a good urban house? Number 1 would be using the land efficiently. So make sure you try and use as much coverage and floor area ratio as you possibly can. I mean, these are very expensive sites, so you would want to maximize what you build on them. Building a single story on here would be an absolute waste. So I wouldn't suggest that. Bring in as much natural light as you can, especially because that light needs to get deep into that space if you don't have windows on the sides. Protect your privacy. Nobody wants to live in a fishbowl, and nobody wants their neighbours to overlook them. So be mindful of your neighbours as well. Don't be selfish in your design. They would want their privacy as well. Definitely have an outdoor usable space, very important. Even if you live in a cold climate, you're still going to want that outdoor space. There are going to be days that it's going to be warm enough to use. Even if you're just using it 2 months out of the year, just make sure you have it, or enclose it with glass that you can open up so it can double up as summer, winter. Work with the street. That is beautifully said. The street's not the enemy. You need to embrace it and actually invite it into the home. Respond to your neighbours. Meet the planning rules, of course. Otherwise, you're going nowhere before you've even started. And make sure that you design in such a way that although it's a narrow house, it feels comfortable and it does not feel cramped, because it can very easily feel cramped if you've got a very narrow width. So just be mindful in your design, have a lot of open space, lots of glass. Try and bring that courtyard inside if at all you can and if you have the space. And the verdict, the urban site verdict, can the same plan work? Yes, but with careful changes. So just make sure your plan responds to your limited land, your close neighbours, your sunlight, privacy, street access and planning rules. Those are most probably the 6 most important things to consider when you are planning a build in an urban space. And yeah, just make sure it's practical. Again, we're kind of saying the same thing, connected to the streets. This is a great image of really good connection to the streets. It's got the low wall in the front, but a lot of vegetation. So you've still got that connection, and that is so important. And make sure you just adapt the design to the site. Then next week, our next typology we're going to be looking at is designing on a sloping or a mountain site. So again, we'll look at the challenges and the opportunities that you have with that type of site and just considerations to look out for. My contact details, if you want to get in touch, anytime you're more than welcome to drop me a line. And I can say thank you for joining, and I'll see you again next week. Thank you.